My buddy Fernando, sheet
Okay.
metal mechanic, fantastic installer. Never knew how much of a caring, soulful individual he was. And our early interactions were hurry up, right? What's your problem? What do you need? I need more tools. Like, okay, stop whining, get your work done. It was, I was, if you can't tell, I was a coddling, nurturing type of guy early on.
I thought you were like a pushy boss man.
Okay, well, some people call it that.
Authoritarian dictator, tyrant.
What's going on, L&M family and fellow Lean Maniacs? We got Calabo-Session number 3 for you, which is the review, or maybe not really a review, of chapter 3 from the Lean Builder, which covers the 8 wastes. Felipe and I, of course, get all excited, get all gooey and gushy about this wonderful topic. And if you haven't heard Calabo-Session 1 and 2, check them out. They're pretty good. As you go through this episode, you're gonna see how much trauma I have around the waste of non-utilized talent. And I'm not the only one with issues. Felipe's got some issues too, and they come out when we start talking about weekly work plans. Hang in there. I'd love to get some comments from y'all, letting us know how nutty we really are. Now, if you're brave enough and ready for some fans-only magic, hit us up on patreon.com/learnings and missteps. You'll get some exclusive content, and you'll also contribute to us staying commercial free. Now, time for some action.
So we're here, man. It's a beautiful Saturday. I'm glad that you're healthy and
yes,
you look good. It looks like it's a little chilly. Is it a little chilly in Texas?
It is. It's probably me being cheap. I'm more cheap than it is chilly. So it's like, man, I could do something about heating this room up, but I'll just put a jacket on.
Yeah.
We get weird weather. It's probably 60 degrees outside.
Oh my God, it's like freaking hot. It's only 48 degrees out where I'm at.
Oh, no. It's 54 degrees. It is a blizzard outside right now in San Antonio.
So did you read?
Yes, I did read. I was out. You and I had to flake on you on our last scheduled engagement. And I was like out for about 2.5 weeks. Like didn't even work.
I can't even believe it. 2.5 weeks went by that fast.
Man, the strange thing is the brain fog. I edited a whole podcast episode.
Mm-hmm.
Don't remember doing it at all.
Is it good?
Of course. It's amazing. Anyways, my point and all that is I'm still playing catch up on work and house, all the stuff that we got to do.
Sure.
But I knew I was meeting with the masterful Felipe. So I got up extra early this morning, got my reading done, reviewed my notes, so I am prepared.
Excellent. Yeah, I got up over an hour ago. It's pitch black dark outside. I said, wow, Jesse's been awake for like over an hour.
Yes.
I could just tell. I knew you were already up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had to do it. Got to be ready. And ready for the audience, right? I mean, we want to give them something good. We want to provide some value to the time they take out to listen to us ramble.
Let's kick it off.
Let's do it.
We're reading The Lean Builder.
Dun, dun, dun.
Chapter 3. The 8 Wastes.
Deep stuff here. Maybe you should lead it off because you already know I like skipping ahead all the time.
I know you do. So here, I'll set the tone and then skip us ahead. So in chapter 3, you're only a third away into, there's 7 chapters in the book. And in chapter 3, Sam doesn't get it yet, which is real life. Mm-hmm. Like, it takes a while to get some of this stuff. You can walk past a 8 waste poster 1,000 times and never understand what it is, even if you read the whole thing 1,000 times. And in chapter 3, Sam gets this call. This happens every day to superintendents all over the world, where one of the trades will call you and say, all of a sudden, I've got some extra material. I'd like to bring it to your site. And the superintendent just gets excited, like, yes.
Oh, bring it.
Don't even think about it. And I don't know, Jesse, for at least a decade, I've been anti bringing things just because.
Felipe, I agree. But I think it's important for the coaches out there to really take into account what's driving that behavior, right? Like they're not doing it to make their life harder. They
No.
are getting some kind of reward from that behavior. And the reality is, or rather, my theory is, it's a result of us working in this system that's all jacked up.
Yep.
And because it's all jacked up, there's all kinds of pinch points. There's all kinds of cliffs to fall off and die in. The idea of just getting it early is better because typically, and this is nationally, right? I'm in San Antonio, Texas. You're in California, and we all have the same experience because people are so used to having a break in the supply chain, wherever that may be. And so the default is, hell, get it here early so that way at least we don't have to wait for it when we actually need it. Again, another indicator for some problem solving. But when you're in the middle of it and budgets are telling you you're running out of money and schedules are telling you you're going to start paying out of your pocket, what do? We revert to our comfort zone and release the Kraken.
And for people like reading along in the book, Sam gets a call from Hank, who's running the ductwork. And he's telling them, they have a little joke back and forth. Appreciate that humor, Joe and Keon. We like that back and forth humor. There's some military humor in there as well. A fence getting, we're going to just jump over the fence getting, blown over and allegedly ran over by Hank. And they're going to bring an entire floor's worth of ductwork to the building, like in 2 weeks?
Yep.
2 weeks later. So in a matter of a couple days, the entire building's ductwork is going to be on the floor in the building. So everyone listening, just imagine walking through a building. Now imagine all that you just walked through. You can't just walk through it because ductwork's in your way everywhere. Everything that would be up in the ceiling is now on the floor in your path of travel. It's impossible for it not to be in your path of travel.
Oh yeah, plenty of stuff. But at the onset was like, what? You could get it early? Bring it, baby.
With excitement. The first thing that Sam thought when all the ductwork was going to get there is what? What do you think about in schedule?
We're going to finish early. We're going to catch up. We got to go.
That happened on my last job I was a PM on. Same thing happened. They brought all the ductwork for 2 floors. Because if 1 floor of ductwork is good, Jesse, 2 floors even better. I feel like it caused a 1-month schedule delay.
Joe and Kian did a fantastic job of really laying out all the real impact that decision has. And you just can't see it. I mean, you're in the middle of it as a, superintendent, trade foreman, whatever. And it feels good to see everything there, right? And so that takes me kind of to where I started is, well, hell yeah. And by the way, I've been that trade partner that was happy to flood the job with ductwork and pipe and carriers and, everything else because it made me feel safe. I have everything here. I'm not going to have to wait for anything. I'm not going to have the frustration, negotiation back and forth. Well, can you send me some of it? What can you send me? All of this mess, back orders. It's all here. I could touch it and it feels great. But I touched on it a little while ago. It really is a workaround, right? It really is. Getting it early is a Band-Aid to a bigger problem. And as we go through this, they highlight the compounding problems associated with getting all that stuff here early. You see a poster on the wall or you read the words 8 Waste in a book, but until you can contextualize what that is to your day, you really won't understand. And then warning, red alert. Once you're able to see the wastes, you may need to get a therapist because you're going to see that damn waste all over the place. And it is going to give you this sense of anxiety like, oh my God, we're going to die. Like, no, we're not going to die. It's been there the whole time. The only difference now is you can see it and you got to do something about it.
It's in our culture. Batch and queue. Big batches. We want to process everything in giant batches and we think more is better.
I guess the best way to say is there's hazards in it. And being aware of it helps us make a better decision. They brought 4 truckloads of ductwork, started out at 7:30. Yeah, we got it. We're putting it all over the place. I guess what's that, page 44? And there's still like this sense of glee. This is going to be great. We're going to make up time. Everything's going beautifully. And then there's a dose of reality. Alan invites his mentor, Sam, to the huddle. Like, hey, man, check it out. Things are going good.
No, Sam invites his mentor, Alan, to the huddle.
Oh, I got him flipped. So Sam invites Alan to the huddle to kind of show off, right? Look at what I've been doing. Look at where we're at as a team, unknowing that there is a problem about to blow up in their face.
I'm glad Alan's there to witness it, if nothing else for comedic relief. Because once you see, it's kind of predictable what the dominoes are going to fall. Reader, for the first time checking this out, this is not fiction. This is real. Jesse and I have seen this hundreds of times.
Hell, I've done it. I've done it many times. So they start going through the daily huddle. It eroded from a huddle to talk about what work was going to be done to a huddle that was talking about what work couldn't be done, which is never fun. And guess what? The main reason these different trade partners could not do their work was because, drum roll please, ductwork is blocking them. Receiving this duct early and distributed it throughout the floors constrained people from actually physically doing their own work. And that's when the perfect venue for some teaching arose.
It just delivered that day. It's been less than an hour.
Yes.
And there's already damaged ductwork.
Yes.
In less than 60 minutes.
Yes.
Which is so real.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
When I used to play out there, we would give me my duct, give me my duct. And, people would tell me like, Jess, aren't you worried about damage? Like, no, it's good. We're going to have the ends covered. It'll be protected.
Yeah, saran wrap is going to protect metal.
Exactly. And then even better, that saran wrap, all that does is call for people to go poke at it and pop holes in it, right? And then after they pop the holes in it, guess what they do? They throw in San Antonio anyways, breakfast tacos. They come in aluminum foil. What do you find in the duct? Aluminum foil. It just ends up like it just keeps degrading and degrading, man.
Because rectangular ductwork, when it's stood up and it's like a short piece, it looks like a perfect garbage can.
Yes.
Even though it has no bottom. That's just trivial consequence. No one cares about that.
Yep. And if not, at least it's a target for us to try to throw stuff in. Check it out. I bet you I can make it in there. I mean, I'm not making fun of people, but these are behaviors. These are things that happen. Like having that extra junk stuff there, rather having it before it's needed.
Yes.
Triggers all these other behaviors within our people out on the job site. And what will we do? We will blame people. Stop sticking, stop popping holes in the saran wrap. Stop throwing stuff in the duct. Yeah, okay. But how about not have it there?
And in those meetings, it's always the general contractor talking down hard on the foreman, as if the foremen are the ones doing that stuff.
Like the foreman said, today, in order to achieve budget, we've got to pop holes in saran wrap. Then on the next page, it really surfaces the largest contributing factor to that situation. The decision was made. It was a siloed decision between two people. Yeah. They did not get the expertise and the perspective of everyone on the team to make the appropriate decision for the team. What do you think about that?
That's what we call a single silo optimization.
Ooh, fancy.
When you're trying to benefit, I got the fancy words today. Look, I got my fancy coffee cup. I'm staring at myself.
Dude.
Shout out to It Happened on the Job. We'll give a shout out to the sponsor, Goodman Insurance.
Nice.
No, but single trade optimization is always going to be to the detriment of the project. And like you said, Sam got so excited when Hank called him and said, I got this ductwork to deliver, because we're not used to having things go our way. So when, when something seemingly good happens, you could just get swept up in it.
Yes,
and not think
beware.
like, oh, wait a minute, there's an entire project here. And a job of this side it seems like there's at least a dozen or more trades. So if you do something that makes one trade very productive or hyper productive, it's going to be at the detriment of the others. You have to always be thinking optimizing the whole project, not one single trade partner, which we often see. And kind of glad he didn't do it to the drywaller for a change. I think we see that happen most often with sheetrock because there's warehouses all over the United States and the world in every major city full of drywall. So it's easy to make it just show up like magic.
It kind of reminds me of the evolution of my thinking. There was a point in my career when rather than argue about, no, I don't really need everybody, I kind of decided to let's just agree to disagree because I still don't need you.
Man, the chip on your shoulder is like almost as big as your head.
Right? I mean, geez. We talk about pull planning. The other thing that happens in pull plans that's kind of invisible is that trade partners, or rather Jesse, got to understand how his success was interdependent of everyone else's success. I got to learn that my handoffs helped people, which helped me. I get this question often like, man, well, we already did a pull plan for one room and we're just going to count. Like, okay, but there is variation, right? In the rooms, there's different layouts, there's different people, all that stuff. You're on a project for 18 months. The likelihood of having all of the players stay the duration of that project are very low.
Yeah, it's basically zero.
Right. Thank you. And in the pull plan, we're making commitments. There's some outcomes that we need to have, but some of the outcomes that aren't explicit is as a trade partner, I start learning how there's this interdependency in order to achieve success. So that whole little rant there is about how do we help a trade partner get from it's all about me, I need my ductwork, I need my plumbing, I don't care about anybody else, to say, oh yeah, if I do it this way, it's going to help me in the long run. That's a reasonable expectation out of a few cycles of pull planning.
Totally is. With Sam and Alan is being very intentional with Sam because he wasn't ready to just jump to pull planning because it would have just blown up. And it blows up. When I say it blows up, I mean, it's going to utterly fail.
Yes.
And I think if you haven't prepared your foundation for how to even be thinking differently, you don't have a chance. Your success ratio for planning is 0%. You can't do it. Now,
yes.
Don't get me wrong. Trade partners, you're listening out there. If you're on a job and the GC is currently not pull planning, you can absolutely pull plan yourself and still be completely successful as compared to the rest, and maybe even spark some curiosity.
Yes.
And if you're out there listening and you know the 8 wastes and you're on a job and it's clear as day based on what you see day in and day out that you're the only one that sees it, throw a book at somebody. It's available on Audible too. Find a meaningful way to engage with people, just like Sam does here. Sam gets walked up to the second floor by Alan, and he's like, let's just look at it. Let's see what that decision manifested, and they go start checking it out.
Fantastic point. There is some foundational learning and knowledge to be had and build upon. We don't start with calculus in first grade, right?
Nope.
So this is a recent learning that I've had. We're talking about the 8 wastes a whole bunch, and as I was reading through this, it like conceptually, it's easy for me to understand what the 8 wastes are, and I've spent a lot of time learning it and practicing it. Now, when I go and interact with an installer, let's give them a name. I'm going to go talk to Josh.
Okay.
And Josh is an electrician, and he's installing light fixtures. And when I go to Josh and say, hey, Josh, I've been observing you. I've been watching you for about 20 minutes. Thank you. You're wearing all your PPE. You're lifting it appropriately. Your work area is clean. Appreciate that, man. Keep doing that. But I see an opportunity in your work to eliminate waste. That sounds like a very helpful. It sounds good so far, right?
No, it doesn't. That sounds so rude already.
Thank you. And he looks at me and he says, what do you mean waste? Like I'm working my ass.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you about the 8 waste. When you go up and down that ladder, that's waste. There's a million examples. What's happening, like you said, Felipe, I'm accusing that person of being waste.
That's what they hear.
That's exactly what they hear. And we have to be responsible with that. I have to recognize that the way that individual is doing the work is the way the work was designed. And so if I go to Josh and say, hey, Josh, opening, how you doing? Everything wonderful, good, great. And then I say, hey, man, you're following the process. You're doing a great job. It's clear to me that we've done a miserable job of making that work better for you. And here are some things I want to run by you so that we can make the work better for you. Mm. And you let me know, like, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? Or will you not try the idea? That conversation is very different than saying, hey, let me tell you about these 8 wastes and they're all up in your business. What do you think?
I think I like that other approach much better.
You might like me.
Yeah, I think so. You're like, let me run this stuff by you. There's no need to be defensive.
Right.
In that way. The other way, option 1, the walls go up. You will not cross that line.
And then we'll blame the trade partner. They're just, there's just no buy-in from trade partners. Well,
every time I hear there's no buy-in from trade partners, I translate that to, I don't know how to persuade people to try cool ideas. That's what I really hear. Or I myself have not bought in. I'm not Mr. Persuasive, but when I get excited about something, it's infectious.
Yes.
And the same is true for anybody else. I've had people get excited about CPM schedules. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm almost excited about it, except I just have 22 years plus of experience not to be.
Like, wait, come back to reality. And then we get to the acronym of downtime. Dun, dun, dun. So they start talking about D, right? And like you said, the coach is walking Sam through it beautifully, right? Like the first one is defects. The D in downtime is defects. Looking at this situation, not simulated, like real life, where he's living the pain. What defects do you see? It helps him contextualize, digest that knowledge, that information in such a way that he will remember based on his own experience, not based on something he read, not based on something he heard, but the combination of the 3. Heard it, read it, felt it.
And Alan doesn't even have to even tell him to write it down. He's just, he's already in that coachee relationship. You got to lay that foundation down. And you remember how Joe and Keon set this up. That foundation for Sam and Alan goes back decades.
Yes.
So coaches, you figure out a way to approach people so you can get into that coaching, and better coaches can do it faster. So he just gets them to agree and see that defects are problematic. And right now, since that's nothing that he's directly done, they're just looking at some damaged ductwork on the floor. There's no reason for Sam to be defensive because it's Hank's problem right now. But no, Sam, it's your problem too because it's your job.
You made the decision to bring it early.
Yeah, and then the second one is the overproduction. And Alan's telling him, he's just going in order. DOWNTIME, downtime.
Yep.
And that overproduction, beautiful definition there. Having it too soon before it's ready. The opposite of just in time. I've
seen a lot of people struggle with the idea or concept of overproduction. I think it comes from, the industry that we work in. There's definitely a type of personality, aggressive, assertive, competitive.
Type A.
Type A.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what we hire for in the business.
Right. And if they're not type A, guess what? Well, they're probably not going to be successful in our organization. Yeah. Like we design that. We create that culture or environment. We are action biased. We want to do stuff. We want to go, and we want to go faster every day. We want to win all the time independently. We don't really understand winning as a group. And so an indicator of winning is putting stuff in, seeing activities. I get it. But if I'm out at a lake and I see 2 people in the water and there's water churning up and down, like, oh yeah, that's great. There's a lot of activity going on there. One may be drowning though. And we don't understand that. And So now we wrecked out forms on the floor. We took all the pan decking out. We have an empty floor. And oh my God, what a sin.
That's the
Right?
most dangerous time in a project. When a floor first gets turned over, it's when the most chaos is coming.
Yes, because and then it becomes like, oh, well, I know our plan was to do X first, but for some reason, the material to do that is 2 days behind schedule. Well, we're going to do Y and Z because there's space and they have their material ready.
I couldn't even stop from I couldn't
You
stop
knew.
from laughing. Yeah, I'm just seeing an open floor,
Yeah.
and hearing the people, whispering in the back, like, "Oh, it's wide open. It's available. Where are you at?
Go.
Where are you at with this? Go, get on it. Go, get up there."
And
Let's
that
go.
is absolutely a trigger to overproduction.
Don't forget that it's encouraged by the owners too.
Yes.
So an owner will walk your job after a milestone, like a floor being poured out, and they don't even stop and say, "Good job."
Right.
First thing they do is, "Where is everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't everybody working on here?" It's like, well, it just cured like minutes ago.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone thinks that construction is like turning a light switch on or turning a faucet. Let's not forget the plumber love. It's not a flip of the wrist and it happens. It's a massive coordinated effort.
And so this overproduction idea, like, it is very counterintuitive to the people in our industry.
And I don't want to leave out the designers too, Jesse, because the
I agree.
designers, overproduction is the number one way that design gets behind schedule. And I don't care if it's architectural, engineering. And I've polled people, and they'll often will not want to admit to overproduction. But as soon as we make their work visible with either Scrum or pool planning, all of a sudden it becomes clear that you've got people working on massive amounts of things way in advance of when it's necessary. And they're almost happy to hand it off in this gigantic stack of stuff, even though they know it's just riddled with defects, and they're going to have to rework it and a second time, and sometimes even the third time.
Yes.
And overproduction just drains so many things. It has so many horrible consequences, but I think it is the least recognized waste. And when I poll people, I poll designers, architects, engineers, contractors, trade partners, overproduction never makes the top 5. But when you do a root cause and how these dominoes fall, the 8 wastes are all interconnected.
Right.
But you never just have one. They're like twins and quintuplets, octuplets.
Yep.
They always come in a gang.
Them wastes roll deep, baby. You got to be careful.
To this point, Sam's agreeing. As Alan is dropping the knowledge of what these, first handful of wastes are, he just completely understands how it's going to slow his job down.
We know what that feels like. Yeah, that sucks. That's a waste. Let's stop. Let's get that out of the system. That one's super easy. And then where do we go? So then we go to, cut me off when you need to, because this is one of my favorite ones.
I'm putting my book down so you can just go. Take it.
So non-utilized talent. And in the book, it talks about non-utilized talent in terms of a tradesperson or craft person moving trash around or moving inventory around, which is keeping them from exercising their expertise by installing stuff, which is a beautiful image and a real thing that happens all the time. It's not just that. There's so much more for me in that idea of non-utilized talent. And one that this book does an excellent job of equipping people to start attacking is when we don't get the expertise of the craft workers that are doing the damn work, right? They have an immense amount of knowledge that we do not tap into. That is non-utilized talent. The decision that was made to release the duct in a conversation between 2 people was a failure to tap into the talent of the rest of the trade partners and understand how this was going to make the project better or not. Now, here's the other part. Elimination and minimizing or removing waste and having a stable system creates a venue for us to develop capabilities within people. And I'm going to say right now, I've seen it over and over and over again, where an individual, my buddy Fernando, sheet metal mechanic, fantastic installer, never knew how much of a caring soulful individual he was. And our early interactions were hurry up, right? What's your problem? What do you need? I need more. So like, okay, stop whining, get your work done. It was, I was, if you can't tell, I was a coddling, nurturing type of guy early on.
I thought you were like a pushy boss man.
Okay, well, some people call it that.
Authoritarian dictator, tyrant.
Yes. And in my mind, in functioning that way, Fernando was the problem. And as I learned and, tripped over myself a million times, I discovered that if I get these barricades and minimize the waste in his work, all of a sudden, Fernando was this really insightful, thoughtful person that was fantastic at training and guiding apprentices. It wasn't that all of a sudden Fernando was there. Fernando always had that. But because of the way I led or managed, right, because I wasn't leading, I was managing and dictating, I was failing to tap into that talent. And through many years and a lot of patience on his part, I was able to mature to a point where I was like, oh, let me get all this junk out of his way. And all of a sudden, this talent that he had that no one, like, we just don't think that craft workers have a capability of teaching or communicating or problem solving and innovating. The reality is we can't see it because of the systems that we are designing, and with the caveat of you may not have intentionally designed it, but your behaviors and practices by default are designing a system that keeps us from tapping into that talent. Okay, rant over.
No, that's a good rant. I feel like I'm Fernando. And I've been mistakenly called Fernando a bunch of times too. So it's like extra good example, Jesse. People in charge, the leaders, don't know what their people can do. They have no idea.
Yep.
And there have been books written about the untapped potential in the workforce for people to do things. And if you look at how, we talked about that type A personality, even those people have creativity streaks in them.
Yes.
And they do things like leaders out there listening to this, to really understand non-utilized talent, you have to get to know your people. Just like Jesse had to get to know Fernando. How did you find out that he was good at teaching? When did that light bulb go off, Jesse?
It was one time that couple things. I had to slow down. And when I say slow down, what I mean is spend like 10 minutes observing him in his area and just, being present, not physically there and staring at my phone or on a call. I was there for a few minutes. He's like, hey, bro, I want you to come and check this out, see what you think, because I think this could help other projects. And I was like, well, yeah, okay, we can save time. I'm going to come see it.
Yeah.
And as he was doing this thing that he wanted to show us, there was a new apprentice on the job. Like the first day on that project. He had some experience, but it was his first day on the project. And I was there to see the way he was going to, elevate the duct so that he could seal it and do all the stuff that he needed to do and then hang it. And there was some tricks, right? Some little tricks he had, a little stand that he built. And I was okay, so let's go check it out. So he gets the new apprentice. And he tells the apprentice, like, hey, man, like straight up, have you ever Pookie duct before? And the guy says, yeah, I Pookie all that, like the duct sealant, right? Okay, yeah. Well, show me. Like, I just want to see how you do it so we're on the same page. So nice. The apprentice shows him, and he says, okay, that was good, but here's a couple of things that I noticed you didn't do. On the corners, right here, you need to like pack it in, and you need to do, and boom, 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 right? And if you want to keep it off of your body, here's how I would recommend you set up your little Pookie bucket and your brush. And I was like, and that took like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this guy's got magical skills. Like he's a teacher.
Yes.
He'd always been a teacher. I just failed to see it. And me pushing, yelling, screaming typically means, hey, dude, seal the duct. We got to go because Jesse's going to come and scream and yell. And then because he didn't teach the person how to do it appropriately, guess what? When we went to duct test, there's going to be a ton of leaks because he didn't train or teach the individual. And we're going to go back and on a damn lift through ceiling grid and fix all the stupid leaks in the duct. And why? Because of me.
Yep.
Back to your question, how did I discover that? I had to slow the hell down, which is very difficult. And then even more difficult, I had to listen, like listen with my eyes and my ears, and understand what was actually going on.
That should be a TikTok. Listen with my eyes and my ears. We'll make that song. Baby. Shout out to Fernando. Teaching that next generation. Non-utilized talent is that hidden potential in every team, every person, even yourself. Like, both of us, Jesse, you and I talk to each other. I think we equally mentor each other. And we tap into, in these conversations where we're intentional, to discover things inside of us that we didn't know we had.
Yes.
Like I'm finding out new things about myself every day. I mean, if I can do that,
yep,
then anybody can.
We got to do the Rocky 5. If I can change and you can change, everybody can change. The non-utilized talent, I'm going to hit it again and then I'm going to stop hitting it.
One more time, hit it.
People ask me, like, Jess, why do you do this lean stuff? Like, why do you like coaching it and teaching it? And for a long time, I didn't have an answer. And so I really had to think about it. And the truth is, when I was a first-time foreman and I got introduced to tools, right? Weekly work plan, 6-week plan. Then I got introduced to 5S. And then I got introduced to the rest of LPS. And the more I practiced and practiced the tools, because it took a lot of iterations for me to be able to use it in such a way that it produced a better result. What that did was it created some bandwidth for me to learn more things and understand things deeper and listen to people and build relationships. And so as a result of practicing the lean stuff and continuing to learn, it helped me discover a talent for teaching, and obviously talking is maybe not a talent, but it's something
clearly
I'm pretty
a talent.
good at. Right?
I'll say it for you, since you can't do it for yourself. Jesse is a talented speaker.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. But I never would have discovered that. I discovered it as a result of practicing the different tools, learning the concepts, understanding the philosophy, the purpose, the intended outcomes of all of these things. And as a result, my career trajectory was like to the moon, baby. And so practicing, learning, adopting this lifestyle or this way of thinking has enhanced my quality of life over and over and over again. And I know for a fact that it's done that. And that's why I want to coach and support people in their learning, because I can help them make their day suck less.
Absolutely. Love it, Jesse.
Okay.
Yeah, you're already, we couldn't even get through all the 8 wastes before we had to jump on like why you'd even pay attention to it. Early on when I learned this stuff and I got it down, I would just jump over it and be like frustrated with people obsessed with eliminating waste. And it took me like 3 years of just crashing against the wall on why is it so important to remember that you don't have capacity when you first start. Yes. You're running yourself like too close to 100, but you can't sustain that. I can sprint maybe across a crosswalk, right? But I'm not going to sprint a 100-meter dash, and I'm definitely not going to sprint a marathon. So when you're first starting out, recognizing the 8 wastes and then avoiding them, getting them out of your life is a massive capacity builder.
Yes.
And for some people, especially newer people, 90% of your workday is in waste. And it's not learning curve. It's like Jesse said, you're in a system designed to make you do these wasteful things. And it's not you. You've got to recognize them and learn them. So, I mean, readers out there, reread chapter 3 multiple times until you get it and put them into play so that you can increase your capacity to do more of what you want and discover those talents, develop those talents. I always do this, Jesse. Here's my Felipe's dirty trick to see if people get it. Okay. If you understand waste, and most people just nod politely and tell you that they get it, I ask them, like, what are you learning during the workday? And that's the response I get. Dead silence. If you are really doing it, you have increased capacity to learn, and you can learn anything you want. I've even told people, like, if you want to study some biology on the side, or if you want to get good on TikTok, you know, shout out to Shannon, who's like really good at mad social media posts. I just learned from her this week that you can do donut yoga as a morning ritual. Did you see that one?
I saw that. That was awesome. Yes. I was jealous. Like, come on, ladies. When do I get invited to do donut yoga?
I know. I've never been invited to donut yoga, but I want to be invited. You can get your work done. You can learn. You can experiment. And you can have better relationships at work. That doesn't happen until you have that learner's mindset and you're putting it into place. So check out this chapter multiple times.
So that takes us to transportation. And transportation, it's the movement of the stuff, the material. And one thing to make that easier would be to have everything on wheels, right? Yes. Anything that's delivered to the job site, make sure it's got wheels on it or under it. And that minimizes the impact, right? Because if it's on pallets, you probably have a pallet jack. And everybody else is using it, or it's on the other damn side of the building, or that sheetrock is in my way, or that pallet of fittings is in my way, and I'm not going to move it. I'm installing duct, sheetrock, and pipe fittings. That ain't my stuff.
Nope.
So that's a phone call. Hey, man, look at this stuff, or a picture, text, like, hey, they need to move their crap. I can't do my
Or even worse, a photo put into some management software platform that goes to the superintendent.
And then you piss everybody off, right? Like, that's a whole other thing. But if it's on wheels, I'm more likely like, oh, phew, I'll just move it out of my way. Exactly. It's still waste. It has been reduced. It's still waste, but the movement of that material, I mean, ideally, the transportation of that material should be off the truck onto the floor and its final resting place within 3 days. I say that never having achieved it, but that's what I'm working towards. Can I get it off the truck, wear it to the place of installation, to its final resting place within 3 days? That takes a lot of damn effort, a lot of coordination and whatever, but you're minimizing the transportation. Off the truck onto the first floor for 6 days, moving it around a gazillion times, up to the second floor, moving it around a gazillion times, and then actually installing it 3 weeks later. I didn't need it. I got it too early.
And you know, all of these definitions, these 8 wastes that we're uncovering, they all are sitting on top of this definition of the flip, the inverse, what's valuable. I think Joe and Keon jumped over it because they just assume everyone knows what value is, but the wastes don't make sense to people. Transportation, and the reason I'm sensitive to transportation, Jesse, because I got into an argument with somebody recently about transportation as a type of waste. I said, let's agree first on what's value. Value, in my definition that I learned from Jim Womack, shout out to Jim Womack, author of The Machine That Changed the World. Love you, Jim. Also, your buddy at the Lean Enterprise Institute, right? Yes. Jim Womack's taught me a long time ago in a book. He said, value is the beneficial transformation of information, material, or a combination of both. That's value. And he's like, if it's not transforming, nothing's happening. There's no action. And I love that definition because it's so action oriented. My type A side is like,
got it.
Right. I'll often tell people, like, when you order something from Amazon, shout out to Amazon.
Yes.
When that thing leaves where it's held, the warehouse, the distributor, or the direct seller, and it's on its way to you, are you happy that it's on its way to you? No. You don't get you don't get satisfaction until you have it in your hand. That transportation is a necessary evil because you don't live in a warehouse. So you have to wait for it. See, and it's coming to another waste that we just passed. Yes. Right? They're all related. They're all interrelated. We want to minimize transportation. That's why Amazon as an organization, when they scaled, created distribution warehouses outside of most cities, or right on the city limits of most major cities. And they can do that 2-day shipping, that they tell you that you get it free as part of your membership. It ain't free. You're paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying for it 100%. But they can bring the cost down to deliver rather than a centralized place where everything's coming from one spot. So that's a different thing to think about. Beneficial transformation of material, information, or a combination of both. Mm-hmm. When you have that value definition, then it's easier to see why transportation's a waste. Because I've had a lot of people have a lot of trouble with the T in downtime.
It's gotta happen.
I think it's right, and we pay for it too. Like we pay for shipping,
yes,
and people just assume because you pay for it, it's valuable. Like
yes,
right, just because you pay it, that's a necessary evil.
I pay for the doctor, right? When I'm not taking care of myself, that doesn't mean it's value. It's because I have wasteful behavior that is creating an unhealthy situation. Like, yeah, it's keeping me alive. It's going to help me live a little bit longer, but it didn't have to happen. It's a result of bad decisions.
Yep. Completely preventable.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in your
that's
case,
a better, yes, thank you. That's a better definition. Not bad decisions, but preventable behavior.
Right.
I like that. Oh, man, I'm writing that down.
Yeah, transportation, Jesse, you got me inspired, man. I started running.
Oh,
and that's transportation of myself. Transporting myself all over planet Earth.
Transporting the calories out of Felipe.
And that's because I have too much excess inventory in terms of fat cells. See, all these wastes are interrelated, so now I have to spend all this transportation.
Yes,
I need more transportation.
Because you overproduced when you were at the table.
Yep, overproduction, putting in more food than was necessary. The defect was I tried to put my pants on and I couldn't button them up. And I wanted to blame the pants, but it was defective thinking that caused me to not be able to button pants that I used to wear for a decade.
Oh, man. The afflicted. When you are afflicted, you will have these types of conversations.
Right.
And so that takes us to inventory, the sixth waste. Alan's, still schooling Sam. So having inventory may not seem like a bad thing at first, but having too much of something on a job site can kill flow.
Yes.
So that's an important, it can kill flow. Yes. Will work happen? Yes. Will people be busy? Yes. Will things get installed? Yes. But is it flowing? Yeah. I think that's a good anchor point to get a sense of what inventory, a good or an indicator of, I have too much inventory. Because inventory is helpful when the buffer or that inventory is right sized.
Yep.
But I don't, for me in my earlier in my career, I just needed material because it was my wubby, right? It made me feel good because I got it.
Your security blanket for those of you that don't speak Jesse.
Thank you. Security blanket. And then I got introduced to all these concepts and I said, zero inventory on the job. Guess what happened?
Delays,
because we needed, this was for real.
Yeah.
I ordered 1/2-inch copper. Yeah, I did a bunch of stuff. Anyways. So I only ordered exactly what we needed for a specific thing. And because of the way the team was cutting the pipe, it caused us to need more couplings. But I only ordered 6. And because we needed 2 more, they had to stop and wait because we had to go get some couplings that, you could trace it all back to the fact that my inventory buffer, there was 0 inventory buffer. What did it do? It disrupted the flow of work because they were clicking and then boom, hard stop. And so inventory is an indicator, but we've got to right size that buffer, right? I should say it this way. Inventory can be used as a buffer, but it's got to be right sized. And understanding the whole scope of work or the sum of the work and the material and our output, what can we do? How quickly can we do it? Helps us right size that inventory buffer.
Absolutely. And we see the same thing in design as well. In early design, sometimes the design team wants to engage the client stakeholders with a lot of meetings. the clients like trying to optimize for their stakeholders are busy, like especially if it's a hospital or a school, they've got day jobs, right? But they were like, let's just do this. Let's get these meetings over with. So we're going to have like 5 meetings, you know, 1 week, or even I've even seen like all day sessions that just burn people out. And you've created this massive inventory of information. So now they've pulled this massive amount of information. They've got these like pages and pages and pages of notes or flip chart papers, or an entire room is plastered. Whiteboards are just filled to the kilt where you've run out of space. And then someone has to process all that information. It was way too much. And then they look back and they're like, God, you know, from here to here, this doesn't even make sense anymore. Like, what were we even thinking? What were we talking about? It's just too much. We see the same thing with punch lists, these management systems that allow you to create issues. It just encourages excessive inventory going way beyond what's necessary and what people can handle, because holistically, we haven't looked at our system that we've created, that we're living in. How much information, how much throughput, how much flow, what's our flow rate of good, valuable, in-place, high-quality work? You can't exceed that throughput until you make changes to your system.
Right.
So if we're on a team, Jesse, like your crew, how many people are on that crew doing those fittings?
3 people.
3 people. So that 3-person crew, they have a certain output.
Yep.
And you could have stepped back and said, like, based on their rate, am I feeding them with enough stuff so that they can continue to have a smooth flow? And if you need to speed them up, you don't think just throw more material at them. What changes can we make so that the work can flow easier?
Yes.
Now, faster will be a consequence, but start with making it easier first and reducing that inventory within that buffer. Thank you, Jesse.
Yep.
See how aligned we are?
Yes. Oh, here's one. Tell me what you think about this. Time is the shadow of motion.
Tell me more.
You like that? So I got introduced to that by a coach, a mentor, Bryant Sanders. We were just learning how to study work. And he kept saying that. I'm like, I think I know what you mean. But no, not really. So it took a while for me to digest it. So what does it mean?
Break it down.
Time is the shadow of motion. What I tried to do in my improvement efforts previously was cut time, go faster. And all that was really pushing, grinding, adding burden to the person's day. It took me a long time to discover that if I reduce the motion, take out the things that are causing the movement of that human being, the result is, as that motion gets smaller, the shadow gets smaller. Time is reduced. You like that?
I love that. Time is the shadow of motion.
Yep. So when we want to improve throughput or output, production, whatever words you want to use there, my recommendation, or my learning rather, what I learned was focus on reducing the amount of movement that individual has to do as a result of the way the work is currently designed. You minimize that, time's going to go down without a doubt.
That's some gold.
You like that? Well,
I love that.
Bryant Sanders imported that to me, and got to keep sharing that knowledge, right?
Right.
You know what? That's perfect, because that takes us to M, motion. So another thing I discovered, Joe and Keon do a good job of helping people understand what that is. People moving around. One thing I discovered is in motion, because motion, transportation is the movement of material. Motion is the movement of the human being, of the person. Yep. When I minimize the motion of that human being, I'm also minimizing risk. And when I say risk, I mean exposure to injuries. So for example, soft tissue injuries. If my work is set up in such a way that I've got to lift this 40-pound bar, and I've gotten 80 of them to install, and I've got to bend down to pick that up and install it, typically we would say, don't be a whiny boy and do your damn job. And guess what? I will do it. I'm 20 years old. No big deal. I'm 43 years old. I can feel it now, right?
Yes, you can.
And that is a result of wear and tear on the body. because I've been bending down to pick this damn 45-pound, whatever it is, hundreds and hundreds of times. But there is physical motion of my body bending down and coming up. How do I minimize that motion? Let's elevate that work. Let's build some platforms or something so that it's waist high. And now I'm grabbing it and staying strong, picking it up and installing it. So by minimizing the motion, we will also improve the ergonomics of the work, and people will feel better. I mean, real life example. We did this with an electrician who was on the verge of retiring, and did some things to minimize the motion or improve how he had to move throughout the work. And the next day he came back and said, he's like, dude, last night I had the best sleep that I've had in years. And I also was able to go home and play with my grandkids and talk to my wife because I didn't sit down on the lazy boy and pass the hell out like I normally do to exhaustion.
Yeah, we talked about that, running at 100%.
You got it.
It's not sustainable. You can't run yourself at 100%.
No, not forever.
Can't. No. We did the same thing too, Jesse. I was working with a team on a parking structure, and we looked at they didn't want to do pool planning, and I was like, "Good, you're not ready for it anyway. I don't want to do it with you anyway." And instead, I said, "Let's bring in the lead foreman and understand where people having trouble, and not because they're whiny,
right?
But where is it hard for no reason? Like, why are we making this hard?"
Yes.
Like, why are we punishing our people? Did they do something bad?
Yep.
Are we just being vindictive for no reason? And that wasn't the case. So, we looked at just where they were working and where their material storage bins were. And we said, like, hey, is it okay if we just move those closer to where they're working? Like, it's basically on a parking structure, it's very few crews. It's 3 different crews, 3 different types of trades. So it's simpler, but it still can get out of hand. And so they moved it close to where the actual next concrete placement was going to be. Like, when I mean closer, I mean they were traveling 3 levels to go back to a tool bin. We put the bins up. We put the bins. Check this out. We put the bins up where they were, making that one little change. Jesse took their pour cycle from 14 to 15 days down to 7.
Yes.
Cut the pour cycle. So the time shadow, Jesse, to use Jesse's words, time shadow cut in half.
Because you cut the motion.
Cut the motion. And they didn't even need to do pool planning because the schedule that they had all that baked in problem. Yep. And by just the thinking about the wasted motion, we got all the way down to doubling the throughput. Doubled the throughput. That's just one waste. So if you're reading this book and you're like, I want to do a pool planning one day, where do I start? Start with wasted motion. Look at that time shadow. Time is the shadow of motion.
Watch out, baby. Lastly, we get to the E, which is excess or excess processing. And they refer to it as anytime you need to rework, rebuild, redesign, you're experiencing excess processing. And listening or having this conversation with you, Felipe, and hopefully our listeners are getting insight, and our conversation speaks to every stakeholder involved in construction. Naturally, I'm going to be on the trade partner's perspective because that is my background. That's where my heart is. And you being able to speak of your experience with engineering and design and the GC side of it is fantastic. Part of the reason I was excited about doing this is so that we can help people further understand the other stakeholders' perspective. So as that relates to extra processing, Last Planner System has become this really sexy, exciting thing that a lot of people are learning to do, right?
It is getting sexy.
Oh, man. Well, I think, you know what? It started getting sexy, Felipe, when you and I started doing it. How about that? Yeah. Watch out, boy.
Yeah, boy.
And so here's an example. This is a real situation that I experienced working with a trade partner. We would do pool planning, weekly work plan, 6-week planning, We did that with or without the GC. Most of the time, it was us internally coordinating our stuff, getting ahead of things, identifying constraints, removing them. Then all of a sudden, GCs started, in San Antonio, anyways, they started playing with it. And so we had our weekly work plan, and they had their weekly work plan, meaning different formats.
Right.
And naturally, we have to use the GC's format because they're in charge. Well, guess what Genius Jesse did? I would not accept, like, if the foreman would send me the weekly work plan and it wasn't in our format, I said, do it in our format. Is that an example of extra processing, Felipe?
Yes.
Duh, and I couldn't see it, right?
Hold on, Jesse. You're
Please.
still from the trade partner's perspective.
Yes.
So when
yes.
I facilitate last planner sessions with anybody, I remind them that the people that you hired already have some way to create a weekly work plan.
Ooh.
And I said, it is not for me to dictate to them to put that into a form. It is no benefit. And I've been across the ocean to Europe, Jesse, and had the same conversation with people. And I've asked every GC and every construction manager, because they do it too, what do you do with those weekly work plans that you're collecting from all of these tradespeople? And Jesse, the answer has universally been, we just collect them and we file them away. They don't even read them.
Oh, God, that's the worst thing to do.
Don't even read them, Jesse. So that is 100% an example of excess processing, and I do not condone it. There is a benefit, 100%, there is a benefit to having a weekly work plan. But everybody I've met, I even went to a job where they told me, and this was a job in California, in the Bay Area, where it's supposed to be like the highest, leanest intensity in the whole world.
Yep.
And on this job, I was told that these trades just don't get it. They are completely disorganized, and other bad adjectives were used.
Yep.
And when I went there to do the first session of pool planning, and we asked questions about what they're working on this week, every single foreman, without exception, had a weekly work plan in some way, shape, or form that just coincidentally was not on an Excel spreadsheet. And it totally got the job done. And on that first session, first single day, they pulled the schedule ahead 2 weeks because they could see the interconnectedness, and we created the flow through the system. It had nothing to do with collecting a freaking form. Now, for your organization, if you're listening, Felipe is not saying do away with weekly work plans. Not what I'm saying. If you have that standard in your organization, where there's a benefit, you're trying to raise the level of planning among your crews, there's a benefit to that, to level setting. 100%. There's a benefit. But if you're a general contractor and you're collecting anything from anybody on the project that you're just passing, shuffling paper, you are guilty of excess processing. Congratulations. You now have another way to decrease waste in your life, because you're spending your time. You're spending time with your people to collect it, ask for it, badger people when they don't give it to you, file it, store it, save it, build up unnecessary inventory, it's in your way, it causes defects, all the wastes come into play. They're wasting the time of people that are, creative people to process nonsense paperwork. Yep. Let's reduce that down, take it down to the bare minimum. We won't get it to zero. Right. Like Jesse said, zero's the goal we're striving towards. Let's get there. Let me take a breath and get off my soapbox. Excess processing drives me nuts.
Clearly, especially around weekly work plans.
Oh my God.
But I think you made a great point, right? It can absolutely be used. Well, here's the thing. It's like data.
Yeah.
If you're not going to do anything with it, don't collect the damn thing.
Right.
So how do we level set? How do we use collection of weekly work plans to add value? So an example of that is I would get all of the weekly work plans, and it gave me an opportunity to look at to what degree was the individual planning. and communicating the plan. Early on, it was just fill out the damn thing. Just have a plan, please. And a lot of
Please.
times what I would see is install duct. Okay. So if you install 1 foot of duct, your PPC is 100.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So now I understand where you're at in your understanding of what we're looking for. So I could come back to, let's say, Fernando again. Say, Fernando, thank you for doing that, having the plan and communicating. I could see that you executed the work. What do you think about, instead of saying install duct work, getting specific and measurable? I'm going to install the medium pressure duct on 2nd floor, and we're going to have 450 feet done by Friday. He's like, well, that's what we did. I was like, I know. Well, would it help your team if they knew that that was the goal?
Oh my goodness.
He's
making
like,
work visible.
Yeah, you got it. And he's like, okay. So my point in all that story is collect it. It's a tool that you can use to help develop people's capabilities. But if you're not going to do that, I don't collect used toilet paper, right?
Nope. I hope you don't.
No, not anymore.
I used to work for a water treatment plant, and we did collect used toilet paper.
Oh man, we're gonna have to write a book about that.
Yes, we will. So I want to put a bow on this chapter, Jesse.
Yes,
this is beautiful. Let's bring it to a close. At the end, Sam has to recover from that one enthusiastic decision to just make it rain ductwork on my job.
Mm-hmm.
It took them over a week to recover from that. And I like in the book that Sam goes and engages individually with every one of the trade partners through the rest. And he's now spreading the knowledge of looking and recognizing the waste. And, part of that, I think, is so that he can increase his accountability with his people, because he has to own this mistake that he made. And then if you could teach other people to see reality for what it really is, then 2 people looking at something is better than just one. Some
of the notes I got here in my daily, they as a group come up with a solution to overcome the overproduction, like this whole ductwork fiasco. As a group, all the trade partners. And what stood out to me was when all the team members contribute to problem solving, to overcoming issues, that is an indicator of a super high performing team. And I know a bunch of people get confused and they believe a high functioning team is a team without problems. Negative. A high performing team is a team that works together to overcome the damn problems. Maybe nuance, maybe a small nuance for some people. But just like in pool planning, when people are saying I can't because, they're surfacing constraints.
Right.
They're giving you a gift. They're not complaining. And so you got to change a little bit. Like, yeah, you got problems. Guess what? Every damn project, every damn relationship has problems. The differentiator is, are we going to work together to overcome them, or are we going to stand around and blame each other? Like, that interaction shows the maturation of the team. They're becoming more cohesive, and they're working to help achieve the goal, the team's goal, to deliver the damn project. Sorry, that was a very powerful way that our authors here wrapped it all up.
You're already peppering the breadcrumbs that we're going to pick up the next time we come back. Join us next time as we dive deep into managing constraints.
Oh my God. Here's a teaser.
Yeah.
What's a constraint?
Yeah, let's not answer it. Let's leave them at a cliffhanger.
As always, super great conversation. And thank you for keeping us on track, because you know that I can get off in my preaching. I think this is the first time we're actually going to finish within our scheduled time. What do you think?
I think it is the first time, Box, that we're achieving.
Yes.
And it took us 3 iterations to get to finishing on time. So look, we drink our own Kool-Aid, we eat our own cooking. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Felipe.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you back for Constraints next time.
See, I told you were going to get to see just how twisted we are and how excited we get about the 8 ways. Now, I want to give a shout out. We've had some significant growth with our podcast, and thank you to everybody that's listened and told another friend. We need you to keep doing that, please, because we're having too much fun doing this. As it relates to these collabo sessions, I want to give a shout out to our listeners up in Maidenhead, England, y nuestros amigos de Sudamérica, Colombia, Peru. Thank you for listening. And a shout out to a dedicated and brutally honest listener, Mr. Sean Moran. Shout out to Sean for calling me out on titling this a book review. He said, dude, that ain't no book review. You're right, Sean. It's more of a lean-gasm, and I just can't help myself. Thank you for listening. Be compassionate with yourself. Stay cool, and we'll talk at you next time. Man, you are one dedicated listener, sticking with us all the way through to the very, very end. Please know that this podcast dies without you, and we invite you to share how the episode's impacting you, along with your thoughts, questions, and suggestions. You've been gracious with your time, so we added social media links in the show notes to make it super easy for you to connect with us. Be kind to yourself, stay cool, and we'll talk at you next time.